Started. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. This is Jagtap or KJ here. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at SafeBreach. I wanted to thank you all for taking the time to attend our webinar. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone of a few housekeeping items. Just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be shared on our website as well as with the attendees, as well as the registrants after the webinar is complete. At any given point of time, if you feel that you have questions about the content being discussed or just about the SafeBreach platform, please feel free to use the Q&A function that's available in Zoom webinar. So we shall be answering all the questions during the Q&A session towards the end. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So today's webinar focuses on the analysis and technical validation conducted by Enterprise Strategy Group, a leading integrated technology analyst firm. They essentially, before we even get into that, the background is that they found more than 70% of the organizations, they use upwards of 10 security controls or 10 security tools. And more than 61% of them find it difficult to prioritize remedial actions that will have the biggest impact on risk reduction. They need to know, they find it very difficult to identify what steps should I take or which ones should I prioritize in order to minimize my risk. Consequently, a lot of enterprises have not so clear picture of where their risks are, where their gaps are. So they perform this independent validation of the SafeBreach platform to gain insight into how the SafeBreach platform, the tool, can help organizations stay safe against advanced threats and minimize their risk. This webinar is about understanding their analysis and the insights that they gained. Our first speaker today is Tony Palmer. He's ESG's principal validation analyst from their technical validation group. He has more than 35 years of experience supporting networking systems and storage vendors in numerous pre-sales and technical marketing roles. He uses his background and his skills to ensure that the independent validations ESG creates or produces, they provide a clear analysis and insight into the advantages and what are some of the important considerations that an IT buyer should take into consideration while buying a solution. Outside of work, Tony has founded several coding and computer science clubs at his children's schools to inspire future IT professionals. Our second speaker today is SafeBreach's Chief Product Officer, Yotam Ben Ezra. He's been with SafeBreach for 4 years, and he has actually overseen the platform grow into what it is today from where it was. He has an extensive background in security research, and he has led several research teams at his previous jobs at Radware and Checkpoint. He holds a BSc degree in physics and computer science from King's College London. So thank you to all our presenters, and now let's go ahead and get started. Tony?
Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for joining today. I'm just going to walk through our technical validation that we performed. I'll start with a talk a little bit about what we found in our research that KJ touched on a little bit. Thanks. So as you all know, the number of cyber threats that you're facing in your enterprises is increasing, and it will continue to increase, right? These threats are forcing you guys to deploy dozens of security tools. The data from our survey is up on the screen right now. But really what this means is it requires you to have more trained personnel. It leads to greater complexity, higher costs, and it could lead to overlooked vulnerabilities. And that's really what we were focusing on when we began this project. Next. So we validated SafeBreach's continuous security validation capabilities, right? Which leverage breach and attack simulation to simulate sophisticated real-world attacks. We also examined how SafeBreach enables advanced users to combine their own advanced threat intelligence capabilities and red team resources to actively test their own environments in a custom way, and also how SafeBreach actively gathers critical data to help organizations prioritize and remediate risk throughout the enterprise. Next. So I'll just give a quick overview of the platform. And so essentially, SafeBreach offers continuous security validation, right? Powered by BAS, as we talked about before. It proactively identifies security risks by simulating real-world attacks on enterprise systems, and that's used to help organizations validate the efficacy of their security controls and gain visibility into how their security ecosystem responds at each stage of the defense process. So the SafeBreach platform features three main capabilities to help do this, right? To help you build a complete risk posture. First, it simulates real-world threats using a large customizable playbook of pre-built attacks and scenarios. And next, SafeBreach's Breach Explorer, MITRE Attack Board, and Insights module provide in-depth details about how an attacker may infiltrate your systems and where your organization successfully stops attacks. And finally, SafeBreach gathers the results of these simulations into a concise, easy to understand dashboards and detailed reports that help you prioritize the vulnerabilities that it found. Right? So all of these details together, along with integrations with downstream tools, things like SIM and SOAR tools, help you and your businesses mitigate risks and protect yourselves from real attackers. Let's move on. Thank you. So first, we walked through how an organization would launch a simulated attack scenario and discover where they need to improve their defenses, right? So here in the scenario screen, you can see SafeBreach offers over 25,000 attack methods, right? Organizations can use these to simulate real-world attacks, right? Security administrators would always start with SafeBreach's attack scenarios. They use attack simulators that are built to run with no impact on your existing systems, right? The simulators attack each other across your environment with real payloads and record what would happen in the event of a real attack. SafeBreach then cleans up after the simulation and it doesn't leave any artifacts behind, right? So essentially, you get the benefit of seeing what would happen in a real attack with absolutely no impact to you or your production systems. Next. So when a security administrator selects a scenario, they'll see a comprehensive description of it at a high level and an overview of the attack methods that are used for it. So if the administrator chooses to run the selected scenario, they can configure and customize it and select their target simulators using a pretty simple interface. Next. So these simulators help to define a specific scope of the attack, such as all corporate Windows servers or a specific cloud environment. But SafeBreach also allows organizations to simulate advanced threats really quickly and easily in that way, with the ability to run attack simulations on a regular schedule, if you like. So that automation, we found, helps to reduce dependency on expensive consultants or the need to spin up internal red teams if you don't already have them to perform similar testing. And it accomplishes it all much faster. But on this screen, you can see some organizations may already have advanced threat intelligence teams or red team resources. And so they're able to actively test their environment. And we looked at how more advanced organizations can use SafeBreach to identify security gaps using their own methods, right? So the pre-built scenarios, as I said before, allow for point and click attack simulation. The Hacker's Playbook and SafeBreach Studio that you can see here serve to provide advanced users with extensibility, right? The attack playbook shows individual attacks which can be simulated individually or grouped together as you desire. And these attacks can be copied, duplicated, and customized to change protocols, ports, payloads, really to customize it completely to your environment and your ecosystem. So in this way, we found SafeBreach offers really strong capabilities at both ends of the spectrum. Less experienced employees use the pre-built scenarios. More advanced specialists use the Hacker's Playbook and the SafeBreach Studio to build those customized attacks from scratch, right? And together, those two capabilities increase your testing coverage and decrease the risk without requiring using multiple tools, right? Which is really the goal here. Next, please. So understanding which attack was successful and why it was successful is essential to securing complex environments, right? SafeBreach features many ways to identify these gaps about where an organization's weaknesses lie, including visualizations provided by simulation results, right? Breach Explorer, and the MITRE Attack Board. Next. So while a high-level security posture is invaluable to you, it doesn't always spell out the appropriate next steps. The SafeBreach Insights module provides actionable intelligence that helps organizations prioritize those risks and provides remediation steps. So in this test, we saw 100,000 attacks against a single environment that were reduced basically to just 16 action items needed to remediate the critical risks. Next, please. Right, so SafeBreach's dashboards provide high-level intelligence on the riskiest parts of the environment, and test results are broken down by business unit and security controls so that high-risk areas are seen immediately, and then remediation can begin, right? Dashboards like this with KPI reporting provide a quantitative view of your security posture, which in turn can be more deeply analyzed based on criteria such as MITRE, security controls, business units, right? Whatever is important to you. So in this way, SafeBreach provides really a complete quantitative view of an organization's security posture, right, with real-time results from currently running tests and data intelligence based on previous tests. Thousands of data points and simulations are boiled down to a manageable list of actions that will reduce risk immediately. Next, please. Right, so really what we're getting to here is the biggest question that you have day to day is how safe are you, right? It's a complex question, and many organizations quite simply can't answer it with a high degree of certainty. Attackers are becoming more sophisticated over time, while your information systems are becoming more complex and harder to defend, right? And this is really a volatile combination. So ESG found in our testing that SafeBreach really simplifies the process of determining the extent to which your organization is vulnerable to attack. That provides the ability to launch a variety of attack simulations based on real-world threats quickly and easily, and alerting you to the vulnerabilities while providing the insight that you need to mitigate them quickly and confidently. This is a really powerful combination, right? And in this way, SafeBreach reduces risk by highlighting the highest priority tasks as well, right? Those tasks are going to help you immediately eliminate vulnerabilities. It evaluates and reports on security posture too, which integrates with downstream tools. And Breach Explorer provides detailed intel around what path attackers could take through your environment to reach sensitive data, right? You can then use all this information to close those opportunities off before a real attacker tries them, right? And so honestly, if you're looking to strengthen your security posture, it's really an easy decision to take a very serious look at what SafeBreach has to offer. And next. And thanks very, very much for listening to me talk for these past few minutes. I'd like to pass it back to Yotam, who will take us through some real-world use cases where customers just like you are actually using SafeBreach to do the things that we tested in the lab.
Thanks, Tony, and
Thank you.
thanks for taking the time to evaluate the platform and share your thoughts. We thought what would be nice is to tell three examples and three stories of real-world examples of sort of different use cases in slightly different motivations and colors around how you can approach reducing your cyber risk, and first of all, understanding your cyber risk, and then also reducing your cyber risk using SafeBreach. And so the first one is one of the top 3 US insurance companies. And the challenge for this organization was that they are simply a very distributed organization with many different entities. Some of them joined through acquisition, some of them through different business units, which might have been managed separately in the past. But essentially, the security architecture, infrastructure, tooling, all of this infrastructure is managed independently in each of those units. And so one of the challenges was, how do you evaluate and how do you generate a uniform standard across such different entities and gain a sort of a single language in which the organization can assess where they are, where they should focus as an organization, where they might want to invest. And so what they did was to deploy SafeBreach across all of those organizational units and entities, and basically generate a baseline testing across four major types of risks, basically infiltration, host level risk, lateral movement, and exfiltration. And by running that same scenarios and those same baselines across the different entities, they were essentially able to generate a standard which they could track and define a baseline for the organization. The dashboards that they created across those baselines are being reported quarterly to the C-level of the company and in their board of directors. And now they basically have the ability to track how the programs in the different entities, even if they're using different tools, even if they might be focusing on slightly different projects and so on, but the overall boils down to the same set of standards across those four baseline scenarios. And they basically decided that they're going to measure the entire organization across those four standards. And so basically, even though the tools are different and the strategies might be different, they are comparing apples to apples between those entities and have the ability to show not only that each of those entities is going in the right direction from a cyber posture and cyber risk reduction, but also they are showing it in the same terms. And it becomes data-driven and easy to prove. They also were able, throughout this process, of course, they were able to identify and remediate thousands of gaps, modify thousands of rules across their network access controls as part of the process. So not only they were able to generate sort of a uniform way to measure the organization, they were also able to actively reduce risk for a cyber attack in the organization. And so this was the first example. The second example is one of the top 3 financial services organizations in the US. In this case, they had a few specific areas that they were focused on and wanted to basically validate their strategy around them and their resilience. And so the first one was the ability to assess their segmentation controls. They had a segmentation strategy, they had a set of segmentation rules, but a relatively complex organization, and they wanted to understand whether their most valuable environments are reachable eventually to an attacker. And the second one was around imminent threats. And so US CERT is tracked diligently by these types of organizations, and they wanted a very quick and effective way to both measure themselves and also generate an analysis and action plan across every US CERT, which is triggered basically in the US. So they deployed SafeBreach across their valuable segments. They also utilized our integration to their SIEM platform in order to get additional context on the result of an attack. So after the attack, simply query the SIEM platform and understand which events were generated by the security controls, which alerts were generated by the SIEM. And those segmentation validation scenarios are run continuously on a monthly basis in the organization. On top of that, they are utilizing the SafeBreach SLA to deliver the entire kill chain for each US CERT alert within 24 hours of the notice. There's actually one today, which should already be in the platform, which is an interesting timing. And they're utilizing this to basically automatically run those attacks in the platform and generate a report which they can share to their executives and then generate an action plan again. So either the report will say, we are good, we are protected, we have the compensating controls to address these threat or vulnerabilities, or it will say, here are where the gaps are, and here is the plan that we have in order to mitigate them in time. The reduction in attack surface, which this organization was able to generate, went from 80% attack surface on their segmentation network controls to less than 5% in a few single months. And so this is simply amazing, the ability to reduce the attack surface effectively, focusing on the threats which are concerning to the organization, in such high numbers. And of course, they have their ability to report their imminent threats and mitigation plans in days from new threats notification. This is crucial before, based on the testimony. So before having SafeBreach, they, in order to generate such a report on resilience to a threat which just came out, that required analyzing configurations, picking up the phone and calling vendors, opening tickets, gathering all that information and generating a report. And now it's simply a few clicks away. And it's also based on testing, which is probably the most reliable way to generate such a report. So that's the second organization. The third one we can also name, it's PayPal, and that case study, the detailed case study of this use case can also be found on our website. And this is a strategic but completely different case. In this case, the challenge of a company which makes a lot of acquisitions, and the security team in that company needs to very quickly evaluate the risk and the cost possibly associated with onboarding a new infrastructure onto their organization. In that case, that team generated a very quick security baseline test, which encompasses different types of use cases, which will be entailed in connecting a new network to their own. Within the M&A process, they will deploy a simulator into the target environment, run this scenario, and get a very quick quantitative analysis and the ability to simply understand the level of risk based on actual security testing, rather than just questionnaires, which is sort of most of the common way to assess security for such targets. The idea is that it gives them a very quick capability to raise the flag if the cost of integrating such an entity and bringing that entity to the standard that they need to hold is going to be more significant than they evaluate. In some cases, such knowledge can also impact how the company thinks strategically about such an acquisition. And so it becomes extremely important and extremely timely and important to do that very quickly. But it also serves as the first step at post-merger planning. And so not only the ability to raise the flag, but also to understand what should be the area of focus for post-merger plans from an integration standpoint, and what areas might need fortification given such processes actually come through in the end. So efficiency and speed is one of the key points in this type of use case, and the ability to really provide a data-driven and testing-driven answer in a very quick time. So we've seen three different aspects, angles to validating security posture. The first one was more organization-wide and unifying a common language for security across the organization. The second one was specific around key projects which are happening in the organization and require a focus and ability to validate. And the third one around strategic processes that happen in the organization and require efficiency and speed. And I think now it's good time to go through a quick demo and show a little bit of what Tony discussed about in his part, and just take you through a quick flow of how to test in the platform and what type of reports are available. And so starting from the SafeBreach scenarios, and here, of course, we have a set of recommended scenarios, the latest CERT alerts, but then as you go down, you will find various use cases which are available in the platform. If you're not sure where to start, we have also curated a few getting started scenarios around network, endpoint, propagation, and then data exfiltration. But then if you want to go more specific, those initial baseline scenarios also help in identifying where you might want to start. But then there are various use cases across validating specific security controls, specific threats, threat groups based on MITRE ATT&CK framework, baseline scenarios based on industry, based on which environment you're testing. There is essentially a lot of flexibility and no end to what you can do. But I will take a specific threat like APT29. In this case, all of the techniques that are associated with this known Russian threat actor, which is called APT29, are packaged together in a scenario which is divided into the steps associated with the MITRE tactics, which are attributed to each of those steps. And in order to enable testing this scenario in my environment, all I have to do is tell the environment which simulators I want to test it with. So a few clicks and just selecting the environment. In this case, I selected all, and I'm going to let the environment decide which simulators are appropriate for which attack. But now I'm ready to run, and the test is a click away. Of course, I can also schedule it to run on various time schedules, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, or any custom type of period. I can also get a very detailed description of each of the attacks here. So if I go to some of the capabilities here, and I think as Tony mentioned in his discussion, any of these attacks here, I will have a description. But if I want to change something, or if I'm more advanced and I want to actually change an action here, a parameter, upload a different file, decide a different command, and so on, it's all very customizable. And so I can get very advanced in terms of how I extend it in order to fit my exact needs in my environment. I get the expected number of simulations. As you can see, this is a very high scale test, almost 400,000 simulations I would test across the different permutations in my environment. Once I've completed that and I've decided my use cases and I've scheduled them to run, I will end up having a lot of use cases running continuously in my environment, and I'll be able to access the results directly from here. So I've taken an example test here, in this case, an overall sort of baseline test to assess the security posture in the environment. I can access the summary of that test that will give me the overall simulations, what happened with each of them from a detection prevention score. I will get an overall risk score from a prevention perspective, and a bit of an overview on the security controls which participated in perhaps detecting or preventing some of these tests. But this is just the beginning. From here, I can go to various areas depending on what is my focus. So if my focus might be the MITRE ATT&CK framework, I might want to see my prevention scores across the MITRE ATT&CK heat map. If I'm looking at visibility or detection, I can also adjust the map to see where I have logs, detections, or where I might have some alerts. But if I'm interested in what I need to do and or sort of what's next in this process in order to reduce risk, I can go to the Insights tab, which will give me a few actions I can do in order to reduce the risk in my environment. Each of them will have a lot of details in terms of what's impacted, what type of parameters are required, and we'll also have a downloadable package, in some cases directly to different vendors, and also to Sigma, which is a generic translatable language. So I can have a lot of actionable things I can generate from this test, and eventually I can also decide I want to look at this at an overall dashboard, which helps me see it over time, possibly helps me see it across the different business units in the organizations. And as you can see here, it might be very easy to see that the manufacturing environment and maybe the VPN environments are areas I might want to focus on. I can also break this down by the different security control categories I'm looking at. And in this case, it's very easy to see that I might want to focus on endpoint controls and look at those a little bit deeper. In each of those, I can drill down and get an exact list of the simulations that are associated with this detection part. And for each simulation, I will get a full description with all of the parameters, the remediation information, and also the security events generated by the controls that we're supposed to mitigate. So this is generally looking at analyzing at the high level the entire organization and generating a top-down analysis of how to identify the areas of focus. Another interesting point we might want to look at is how things are developing over time. So we have a prevention and detection KPIs dashboards, which help us understand how things are looking from an over time standpoint and make sure that things are going in the right direction. And so we can decide our detection and prevention KPIs and generate dashboards. There can be overall prevention and detection. It can be by vendor. It can be by a action or by minor technique, depending on which parameter we are building our program based on. We can generate a dashboard to basically track that and make sure that things are moving in the right direction. So that was a quick demo of the different aspects first of all, how to test and operationalize the platform, how to extend the platform and customize things which might be of interest to a specific organization, and then also how to analyze the data and part of the different methods which are available to analyze the data. So thanks for your time here. I think maybe KJ, if we have some questions, we can address them.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Yotam and Tony. We do have a few questions, but before we start answering them, just a reminder, please, if you feel you have any questions about the content that was discussed here today, or just about the platform, please use the Q&A function in Zoom webinar. That way we can get to all your questions and answer them right away. So the first question that I have here is, can you talk about coexistence of your platform with SOAR tools like ServiceNow SecOps?
Yeah, sure. So our integration with SOAR tools can happen in two levels. We do integrate with ServiceNow, but also with other SOAR tools. It can happen in the single simulation level, where if you decide that a specific simulation should generate a ticket for someone which is responsible for the remediation part. That is a click of a button away using the integration. Another way to integrate SOAR tools is to utilize the insights module, where SOAR tools can basically query the insights, get specific insights, and trigger playbooks for changing configurations in the security tools, and then basically re-trigger SafeBreach in order to validate that the fixes were actually effective. For ServiceNow, there is also some additional integrations coming up, but we'll leave that for probably next webinars.
All right, perfect. Another question is, how is SafeBreach BaaS licensed per named user, per simulation, per target host?
Yeah, so the SafeBreach license is based on the number of simulators, essentially, that you deploy in the environment.
Perfect. The next question is, what would be the top motivation for an organization to choose implementing a BaaS platform like SafeBreach?
I think this one is perfect for Tony.
Oh, sure. And it's similar to the things we've already talked about, right? The fact that you're already using so many tools, and it's so complex, right, to manage your security posture. What a tool like this gives you is not just the simplification of that, but actually the direction to point toward, it's not just where am I at risk, but what do I need to do right now to minimize that risk? What do I need to do right now to make my organization safer, right? That's the question that SafeBreach is designed to answer. So that should be your main motivator, right? If you want to be confident that you can make your environment more safe more quickly, that's what should be driving you to this, because it's things are dangerous and complex, and what we've seen over the years is that it's just getting worse, right? And it's not, it's just it's an escalating war, right, between you and the folks that are trying to infiltrate your environment.
Thank you. Next question is, based on your analysis, I believe this is for Tony. Based on your analysis, what is the estimated level of effort and time needed to operationalize the product?
We really very, very low. We looked at that, but honestly, it was, let me just bring up the, let me bring up the specific notes that I took on that, as a matter of fact. But it was, within a few minutes and a few clicks. I mean, we were up and running and ready to actually start testing, right? In our environment. So it was, it was very low effort to get started with all those pre-built attacks, right? And pre-built scenarios. Customization going beyond that. You can spend as much effort and time as you want to get it as tuned as you want, but you don't need to get started. You don't need to get immediate results.
Thank you, Tony. In addition to MITRE, does SafeBreach provide a readout of compliance to frameworks like ISO 27001, NIST, CSF 800-53, etc.?
Yes, so for NIST 853, we have that baked in the product, and for other standards, we've created the specifics on how SafeBreach can be utilized to comply with standards like PCI, ISO, and many others.
Thank you. Next question is, how large is the integration ecosystem? What kind of vendors do you integrate with?
So one of the things we realized early was that as we are there to validate the security ecosystem, is very important to be integrated well into that ecosystem. So throughout the operation of the platform, we have several touch points and integrations. It starts with how you generate the attacks, where we allow customers to integrate with threat intelligence. It moves on to analysis and prioritization and contextualization of the data coming out of the attacks, where we can connect with the various systems from the security controls out there, whether it's network, endpoint, email, and so on, through the SIEM platform, to make sure the entire set of layers as part of the operational security system are working as expected. And then eventually on the operationalization side and how utilizing the data for remediation. So we integrate with multiple tools such as Source, SIEM, workflow platforms like Jira, ServiceNow, and others to basically help automate also the actionability of the platform.
Thank you.
Finally, vulnerability management as well. So we also integrate with vulnerability management platforms in order to marry the data from vulnerability management and attacks for prioritization purposes.
Oh, and don't forget threat intelligence tools as well.
I mentioned that as the first one. I did.
Right. The last question that we have here for now is, how often is the SafeBreach playbook updated, playbook and the scenarios updated?
That's a great question for today, because it's updated with the new US Cert Alert, which came out today. So it goes into two. The playbook is updated regularly. On a weekly basis. There are a lot of new attacks which we are publishing. Part of our capability is to release attacks very quickly as part of the SafeBreach framework. But on top of that, we also have a 24-hour SLA for US Cert and FBI flash alerts. And for those, we guarantee that they will be in the platform within 24 hours. And we've been very good over the past few years in upholding that SLA.
Thank you. So since there are no more questions, I wanted to thank the presenters for this insightful presentation. I wanted to thank all our attendees for taking the time to listen to this analysis, watching the demo. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to send them to us via our website. There's a form right there. If you'd like a copy of this research, it's also available on the website. So thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.